She never let me see her apartment. And I mean never. Like, not once in the 4 months we'd been dating. I should have seen the red flags from a mile away. But when you're fresh out of college with a brain still half fried from finals, and suddenly there's this gorgeous girl laughing at your jokes, you don't exactly lead with the third degree. We met at my buddy Dave's housewarming. He'd finally escaped that roach motel near campus and upgraded to a place with actual counter space. I was manning the drinks table when Amber walked in. Brown hair, green eyes, smile that made you forget what you were saying mid-sentence. The way she rolled her eyes at Dave's story about his investment opportunities told me everything I needed to know. Smart. Not buying anyone's BS. 2 beers in. We were swapping horror stories about entry-level jobs. She worked at this marketing agency downtown, something with analytics that went over my head. But the way she talked about it made spreadsheets sound fascinating. 3 beers in, we were sharing a corner of the couch, and by midnight I had her number. First date was coffee. Second was dinner. Third was at this indie theater showing films no one's heard of. By date 5, we were making out on my IKEA couch that I was still paying off. Things were going textbook perfect. She was spontaneous, but not in that exhausting way some girls are. She'd text about a food truck that was life-changing or a pop-up art thing happening, but never expected me to drop everything. She remembered details about my family. She'd bring up something my sister was going through that I'd mentioned weeks ago. Who does that? Normal people forget that stuff immediately. We fell into this rhythm. Twice a week, sometimes 3 if schedules aligned. Dinner, movies, drinks with friends, Netflix at my place. But always meeting somewhere or at my apartment. It took me a full month to realize I'd never once stepped foot in her place. Not even to pick her up. It was always, I'll meet you there. Or, let's meet at Grounded Coffee first. I brought it up casually after Thai food one night. So when do I get the grand tour of Casa, Amber? Nothing accusatory, just curious. She tensed up for a split second. Blink, and you'd miss it. Before launching into this whole thing about her roommate going through an apocalyptic breakup and the apartment being a war zone of wine, bottles, and sad movies. Seemed reasonable enough. I didn't push. Week 6, still hadn't seen it. My landlord's renovating the bathroom. It's a disaster. Week 8, you don't want to come over. Trust me, we've got a minor pest situation happening. Always a new excuse. Always perfectly plausible. Always delivered with this little self-deprecating laugh that made it hard to question. By month 3, we were definitely a thing. Instagram official. Meeting each other's friends. She'd even met my parents when they visited. She knew where I kept the extra towels. Which drawer had the takeout menus, which side of the bed I preferred. Meanwhile, I didn't even know if her apartment had carpeting or hardwood. That's when the guys started with their theories. We were at Mike's place watching the game when I mentioned the weird apartment situation. The room lit up like I just announced free beer. Dude, she's married, Jason said immediately. Not even looking away from the TV. Classic side piece treatment. Nah, she's definitely hiding roommates. Like, 7 of them. Probably sleeping in shifts, Mike countered. Maybe she's secretly rich and doesn't want you to know, offered Tom, always the optimist. Or homeless, Jason again, helpful as ever. Living in her car, showering at the gym. I rolled my eyes. But the comment stuck. Amber didn't wear a ring, never mentioned an ex-husband, and definitely wasn't homeless. Her clothes were always fresh, hair always clean. But something was up. The excuses kept coming. Pipe burst in the building. Repainting the living room. Electrical issues. All completely plausible one-offs that, strung together, started to sound rehearsed. I started picking her up for dates, thinking I'd at least see the building, but she'd always be waiting at that same coffee shop 2 blocks from where she supposedly lived. "Parking's a nightmare at my place," she'd say, sliding into my passenger seat with a kiss that made me forget what I was suspicious about. By this point, she was staying over at my apartment 3. Sometimes for nights a week. She had her own toothbrush in my bathroom, a drawer with spare clothes, her preferred cereal in my cabinet. Yet I hadn't even seen her mailbox. I tried the casual approach one night while we were making dinner. "So, your lease must be up soon, right?" "Not till next year," she replied, chopping veggies with suspicious precision. "What's your rent like in that area?" "Standard. Nothing crazy." "Deflection expert. Maybe I could help you move some furniture this weekend?" She nearly sliced her finger. "It's fine. My brother's coming to help." I'd never heard of this brother before. I showed up unannounced at her work once, thinking I'd offer to take her to lunch and maybe walk her home after. The receptionist said she was out at a client meeting. Convenient. The mystery was driving me crazy. What was she hiding? A weird roommate? A hoarder situation? A secret pet tiger? I couldn't figure out what would be so bad she'd go to these lengths to hide it. And the longer it went on, the harder it was to bring up directly. "Hey, are you in witness protection or just keeping bodies in your freezer?" Doesn't exactly scream, "I trust you." It was eating at me. Our 4-month anniversary was coming up. And while I wasn't big on those little milestones, it felt like a good excuse to finally clear the air. I made reservations at this fancy Italian place she'd mentioned wanting to try. Wine, candlelight, the works. Perfect setting for the "what the hell is the deal with your apartment" conversation. Dinner was going great. She was wearing this green dress that matched her eyes. Laughing at my work stories, everything perfect. Then the waiter brought dessert, and I decided it was now or never. "Amber," I said, setting down my fork, "why won't you let me see your apartment?" No preamble, no cushioning. Just put it right out there. Her smile froze. The light atmosphere evaporated. "What do you mean?" "I told you. It's just been bad timing with the renovations and—" "For 4 months? Come on. There's always some excuse. I've never even seen your street. Don't you think that's weird?" Her eyes darted around like she was looking for an exit. "Are you hiding something? Someone? Because I'm starting to think my friends might be right." "What have your friends been saying?" Her voice had an edge now. "That doesn't matter. What matters is you're keeping something from me, and after 4 months, I deserve to know what it is." She pushed her dessert away. "So this was an ambush? Nice dinner to interrogate me." "It's not an interrogation to want to see where my girlfriend lives. You don't trust me." She was turning it around now. "I've always been honest with you, except about where you live. And apparently your brother you've never mentioned before." "I don't owe you a catalog of my family members," she snapped. We were causing a scene. The couple at the next table was very interested in their pasta all of a sudden. "That's not—" I lowered my voice. "I'm not trying to control you. I just want to understand what's going on." "Nothing is going on. You're making something out of nothing because your friends have been filling your head with ridiculous theories." She stood up, grabbing her purse. "I thought you were different. I thought you actually respected me." Before I could process what was happening, she was walking out. I threw some cash on the table and ran after her, but she was already in a cab, pulling away. I stood on the sidewalk, watching her disappear, wondering how asking one simple question had blown up my entire relationship. 2 days. No calls, no texts. I tried reaching out, casual at first, then increasingly desperate messages that I'd immediately regret sending. Nothing. Then on the third morning, a text, coffee at Grounded, 2 p.m. We should talk. My heart sank. This was it. The breakup conversation. For months down the drain because I couldn't mind my own business. I got there early, claimed a corner table. Ordered but couldn't drink the coffee that sat steaming in front of me. When she walked in, she looked tired. No makeup, hair pulled back. Wearing jeans and a sweater instead of her usual put-together look. She sat down without ordering. I'm sorry about the other night, she said immediately. No hello, no preamble. I shouldn't have walked out like that. That wasn't fair. I wasn't expecting an apology. I prepared for accusations, not contrition. I overreacted, she continued. But you have to understand. This isn't easy for me. What isn't? I asked, still completely in the dark. She took a deep breath. I'll show you my apartment. I blinked, sure I'd misheard. What? I'll show you my apartment. But you have to promise me something first. Anything, I said, relief flooding through me. You have to promise not to judge me. The ominous request sent my mind racing again. Judge what? The possibilities were endless and terrifying. I won't. I promised, not entirely sure I could keep it. She nodded, still looking unsure. Okay, let's go now before I change my mind. We left the coffee shop, walking in silence. 6 blocks in a direction I'd never gone with her before. Nice neighborhood, getting nicer with each street we crossed. Finally, she stopped in front of a building I'd passed a dozen times. One of those renovated pre-wars with a doorman and everything. She nodded to the guy at the desk as we entered the lobby. Marble floors. Actual mailboxes with little brass doors. A far cry from my walk-up with the perpetually broken intercom. In the elevator, she was visibly anxious, fidgeting with her keys, avoiding my eyes. Amber. Whatever it is. Just wait, she cut me off. 6th floor. End of the hall. She unlocked 2 deadbolts with shaking hands. I braced myself for what might be on the other side of that door. Extreme hoarding? Drug lab? Weird roommate situation? Alternative lifestyle I didn't know about? The door swung open to reveal a completely normal apartment. Clean. Tastefully decorated. Plants on the windowsill. Framed prints on the walls. A gray sectional with colorful throw pillows. Nothing weird, nothing alarming, nothing that explained 4 months of secrecy. My confusion must have shown on my face because she gave a nervous little laugh. It's not this, she said, gesturing to the living room. It's just wait. She led me through the apartment. Open kitchen with actual counter space. Bathroom with one of those rainfall shower heads. Glimpse of a regular-looking bedroom, until we reached a closed door. She paused, hand on the knob, took a deep breath like she was preparing to dive underwater. Remember your promise, she said, and slowly opened the door. I wasn't prepared for what I saw. Not even close. The room was filled with stuffed animals. Not just a few scattered around, or even a reasonable collection on a shelf. I'm talking hundreds, maybe thousands. Display cases lined the walls, filled with bears, rabbits, cats, exotic animals, fantasy creatures. Some in their original packaging behind glass. Others arranged in elaborate scenes on custom shelving. A large cabinet with glass doors housed what looked like rare or antique pieces. At the center of the room was a workspace with a sewing machine, tiny outfits in various stages of completion, miniature accessories, and what appeared to be a photo album open to a page showing a small bear posed in front of the Eiffel Tower. The room had special lighting, a humidifier, and what looked like a climate control system separate from the rest of the apartment. I stood frozen in the doorway, trying to process what I was seeing. This wasn't just a few childhood keepsakes. This was a serious, expensive, meticulously maintained collection. This was a museum. Amber was watching my face with an intensity that was almost painful, clearly braced for ridicule or disgust. "I've been collecting since I was 6, she said, words coming out in a rush. "My grandmother gave me my first one. It's not childish, it's a legitimate hobby. Some of these are rare, valuable. There are whole communities of adult collectors. It's not weird." She was defending herself before I'd even spoken. "I don't think it's weird," I said, though I wasn't entirely sure yet. "Everyone says that, and then they do," she replied bitterly. "My ex called me a pathetic child when he saw them. The guy before him told everyone at my work. My parents think I need therapy. So yeah, I've learned to keep it private." I was still taking in the scale of it all. The care that had gone into creating this space. The obvious passion it represented. I stepped into the room. Approaching the nearest display. A blue bear wearing hiking gear, tiny backpack, boots, even a miniature compass. "What's this one's name?" I asked, genuinely curious. She seemed startled by the question. That's Admiral Fluffington. He's an explorer. Does he have a story?" Her eyes welled up unexpectedly. "You're not freaked out?" I considered the question honestly. Was I surprised? Absolutely. Was it unconventional? Definitely. But freaked out? No. Everyone has their thing, I said with a shrug. Some people collect stamps or sports memorabilia or shoes. Yours just happens to be more huggable. A tear spilled over, tracking down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly. "Admiral Fluffington has circumnavigated the globe," she said, voice still wobbly. "He's been to 17 countries. I take him when I travel for work. Over the next 2 hours." I got introduced to the key players in her collection. The vintage bear her grandmother had given her. The rabbit she'd saved up for months to buy in high school. The limited edition fantasy creature she'd won in an online auction after a fierce bidding war. Each one had a name, a backstory, a personality. Some were characters in ongoing stories she created. Others documented her own travels and life events. As she spoke, her entire demeanor changed. The guarded, tense woman I'd been sitting across from at the coffee shop melted away, replaced by someone animated, passionate, completely unself-conscious in her enthusiasm. And I realized something that stunned me. This wasn't weird. Or rather, it wasn't any weirder than my buddy Mike's obsessive collection of vintage cereal boxes, or my cousin's dedication to creating elaborate model train landscapes. It was just a hobby, a passion, something that brought her joy. But she'd been made to feel so much shame about it that she'd rather risk our entire relationship than let me see this part of herself. "So now you know my big secret," she said finally, after I'd been introduced to what felt like 100 individual stuffed personalities. "I'm a 26-year-old professional woman with a room full of plush toys." There was still a defensiveness in her tone, a bracing for judgment. "I think it's cool," I said honestly. Not what I expected, but way better than most of the scenarios I'd imagined. Which were, oh, secret husband, drug kingpin operation, pet tiger, portal to Narnia. She laughed, a genuine laugh, and the last of the tension seemed to drain from her shoulders. "So we're okay?" she asked, vulnerability written all over her face. "We're more than okay," I assured her. "But I do have one condition going forward." She tensed again. "What?" "I get to come on at least one adventure with Admiral Fluffington. He seems like he could use a sidekick." Her smile was worth every moment of the mystery. That night changed everything between us. It wasn't just that I now knew where she lived or had met her stuffed companions. It was that the wall she'd built, This massive barrier of secrecy and fear had finally come down. Over the next few weeks, she relaxed into herself in ways I hadn't even realized she'd been holding back. She started bringing some of her favorites to my apartment. First just one or two for emergencies, then gradually more. Mr. Whiskers, the distinguished gray cat with a monocle, took up residence on my bookshelf. Penelope, a purple penguin with a tutu, watched over the kitchen. It became our inside joke. "Did you remember to pack Luna's overnight bag?" I'd ask when she came over, referring to the sparkly white unicorn who was apparently afraid of the dark. We started taking pictures of her favorites at landmarks around Boston. Just casual snaps at first. Ambassador Fuzz Boots, a dignified panda, at Fenway Park, Captain Jellybeans, a rainbow-colored bear, at the harbor. But the more I leaned into it, the more it became our thing. 6 months after the big reveal, when my lease was up, it made sense to move in together. Her place was bigger, nicer, already set up for her collection. We converted the stuffed animal room into a shared space, half for her collection, half for my desk and gaming setup. I built new display shelves, helped organize the catalog she kept, learned the difference between limited editions and custom commissions, started recognizing the work of specific plush artists, and somewhere along the way, I fell in love with this weird, wonderful woman, not despite her unusual passion, but because of it. It showed me something about her, a capacity for imagination, for joy, for preserving something childlike and pure in a world that constantly tells us to grow up, be serious, put away childish things. When our 1-year anniversary approached, I knew exactly what to get her. It took weeks of secret searching, but I found it. The discontinued bear from a limited Swiss collection she'd mentioned once. The one that had gotten away in an online auction years ago. The look on her face when she opened the box was everything. Pure, unfiltered happiness. "How did you? These are impossible to find." I can't believe you remembered. That night, as we lay in bed with the newest addition to the family, Sir Cuddlesworth, apparently a renowned alpine mountaineer, perched on the nightstand. She turned to me with a serious expression. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For the bear?" "It was nothing." "No. For not making me feel weird. For making me feel like it's okay to be myself." I pulled her closer. "It is okay. It's more than okay." As I drifted off to sleep, I thought about how close I'd come to losing all of this because she was afraid I'd judge her. How many people go through life hiding the things that make them happiest because they're afraid of what others will think? Sometimes people keep secrets not because they're doing something wrong, but because they're protecting something precious, something vulnerable, something they've been taught to be ashamed of, even when there's no reason for shame. I'm glad I was patient enough to find out what she was hiding. And I'm even more glad it turned out to be a room full of stuffed animals instead of, actual bodies. Though I still check the freezer occasionally, just to be safe. Old habits.